Hello everyone, today on Binky's Gaming Thoughts, I'm going to dive into another Canticle. And I'm really excited about this one because there's so much in here that I have to do it in 2 videos. That's how much there's in here. Before I begin, you're probably noticing this. If what I'm going to try to do in post actually works, then you're going to be looking at something that's reminiscent of Veilfire. And if it doesn't work, then you're just looking at a green light bulb. But it's still reminiscent of the color of Veilfire, so it goes with the theme. The Canticle of Silence is the story of the Magisters who went to the Golden City and came back as Darkspawn. So it's the fall of the Magisters, basically. And it's part of the dissonant verses. So the verses that were completely removed from the original chant. And they weren't acknowledged for a long time by the official Chant of Light. And so it kind of became unpopular and kind of unknown to most people. And it was re-released, so put back into the Chant of Light as part of the new Cumberland Chant of Light by Justinia V in 938 Divine. Okay, so let's get right into it. Silence 1. The choir of silence is corrupted. First among the old gods was silence. So this is Dumat, the dragon of silence, associated with her friend Corypheus, the conductor of silent, the first Blight. His least whisper could end wars or topple archons. A single word could turn recrimination into glory. The sacred fires of his temple burned rare incense and the trees of Alathan, and lapped at the bones of slaves, while his altars dripped with the blood of sacrifices that never dried. Ew. Well, his fires burnt the trees of Alathan. I spoke a while back of the possibility that the Evanuris were the old gods. And I mentioned that perhaps Andruil, the goddess of hunt and blood, was associated with Dumat. Perhaps once trapped, the Evanuris became worse versions of themselves or corrupted versions of themselves. Alathan was already in ruins. If it was an angry Evanuris, I could understand wanting to, lash out in rage and burn even more and create a lot more death and chaos than had already been created by Fen'Harel with what he did. So basically more burning and more blood wouldn't change much, assuming that we follow that theory, obviously. The high priest, conductor of the choir of silence, that's our friend Corypheus, ruled above all the dreamers of the Imperium, wisest and most powerful of the Magisters Sidereal. Well, if he was the most powerful, he would want to be the sole most powerful, maybe a god, assume godhood, and his failing not only is a big blow to his ego, but imagine if someone else took that place instead of him. Like the jealousy, the anger, he wouldn't be happy at all. If the Maker was one of the Magisters and took the mantle that Corypheus wanted to take, it would explain why Corypheus was still trying to achieve that, maybe not knowing that one of his fellow Magisters had taken his place, given that he claims the throne was empty and the Maker wasn't there. In his dreams, he alone heard the voice of silence. So silence has a voice? That's interesting. I thought it was silent. Open the gates. To my golden city you must sojourn. At the foot of my throne I shall anoint you, most favored of my disciples, and I shall raise you up to godhood, that all mortals shall know your glory. Interesting. The call of the old god filled the high priest's heart, consuming all his waking hours and turning his dreams to ash and bones. Every priest and acolyte of silence to the great choir assembled, and the high priest shared with them the words of silence. So Corypheus must think he's the favored one. He's the favorite one. He's the one who's chosen. He's the chosen one. And he said he found the city empty. Maybe the throne was supposed to be empty. Perhaps he was just supposed to take the place. It was empty because he's supposed to be there, and he just failed on the opportunity and became something different instead. Who knows? Every priest and acolyte of the choir turned their hearts and minds as one to their God's command. For the word of silence could not be ignored, and the fire burning in the heart of the high priest consumed them as wildfire consumes plains. So they're all focused on this city, on wanting to reach that, achieve this goal. That the city that's said to be golden. Maybe it was never golden. Maybe it's the eternal city that the Evanurus are locked away in, because the eternal city is a city in the fate, and the golden city / black city is a city in the fate. And maybe the Evanurus are whispering this to them because the Magisters enter the golden city. They unlock a way for the Evanurus to free themselves, albeit a very roundabout way, because the Evanurus have to take on dragon form, like a god form, but a tangible form in the realm of living beings. And maybe since they're trapped in the Fade, they're not able, they have to assume a different form because they can't escape their prison as spirit forms. Since they're locked in the Fade, maybe they took on spirit forms. It seems all very complex. And it is very roundabout because they didn't just walk out. If they were in the city not as spirits or not as intangible beings, when the Magisters opened the gates, they could have just walked out, but they didn't. So Fen'Harel must have really made the locks secure, kind of fail-proof enough for the Evanurus to be in spirit form, not able to walk out of the city, and for it to require them a very elaborate plan that Fen'Harel hadn't thought of. The priests formulate a plan. All knew the golden heart of Dream's kingdom shone like a star, forever out of reach. No mortal foot could tread those halls. No hand knocked upon the gate. Secrets beyond measure were the keys the choir of silence would need, and they had few. So much as the Magisters, being human, couldn't enter the Fade, just like the old gods couldn't just exit the Fade, they needed Magisters to figure out some way to get in so that they could get out. So this kind of explains that theory. And so the first acolyte spoke to the high priest and said, "We are the Magisters of secrets, but our God demands more. Let us to the builders whisper, and they who construct monuments to the glory of the gods shall build us a road to the golden city, where your promise shall be fulfilled." So they're going to build a road. Follow the golden brick road? I don't know. And the great conductor of the choir heard him. And Corypheus heard him, obviously. The priests of beauty are corrupted. The high priest of beauty, architect of the works of beauty. So this is our friend, the architect, the fifth Blight, Orthemiel, designed every work and wonder of the Imperium according to the plans of his god. So according to Orthemiel's plans. To him, the conductor went in secret, armed with the whisper of silence. But the high priest of beauty was sorely troubled, for he served only the great plans, and would in no wise raise a servant of silence above himself or his god. So, seems to me the architect didn't want to see Corypheus above him. He saw himself as above Corypheus, as better. And Corypheus, obviously being the first, was promised to be the first, saw himself above everyone, which explains a lot of his attitude. Obviously, there's already some discord among the Magisters. And yet, the fire in the conductor's heart ignited within the architect a terrible flame. So Corypheus's corruption started to corrupt the architect. It's like a contagion. And so he turned all the lesser priests and acolytes from the Temple of Beauty to beseech the council from his god, so to seek advice from Orthemiel. And to him, Beauty revealed a great plan. Well, the old gods would speak to the Magisters in their language, in the way that they needed to be spoken to reach them, to reach inside them. When you speak to someone, you're gonna sympathize with them, you're gonna use their terms, you're gonna adapt, adjust how you speak to them for them to better understand you. So much in the same principle, they're using it to manipulate and to corrupt. The architect needs a good plan, needs a great plan. So the old god who's trying to corrupt him, to turn him to do what all the old gods have probably conspired together to plan together for this to happen, well, the old god associated with the architect is going to speak to him about a great plan so that he can relate to it. And they're going to give him this great plan. Open the gates. Same command from the voice of silence. And when you stand before me, I shall give you designs that shall rival the greatness of heaven. The designs for an architect makes sense. I will make you the first among the new gods. So Corypheus is already the first, the most favored, as promised by silence. And now Beauty is promising the architect the same thing. And you will build a paradise on earth. Again, that word, paradise, like the promisers promise, like Alathan was before. Could the promisers be linked to Orthemiel and the architect? Could the architect be the leader of the promisers? And a paradise. So if the old gods are Evanuris, they want this paradise of Alathan. So the high priest of Beauty returned to the conductor of silence, the architect returned to Corypheus, and promised all the skill of Beauty's designs in reaching the golden city. So, ta-da! Another Magister is recruited. Peekaboo! Little insert video to the video. Just to let you know that finally I decided to divide the first part of the Canticle of Silence into 2 parts. There was so much stuff to talk about that the video ended up being a lot longer than I myself had anticipated. So worry not, part 1.2 is going to follow up shortly within the next week or so. I'll see you then. Oh, and Masaranas.